Hi guys. Okay, this is Creative Soul Searching Experience number 6. And this one's going to be a little bit different for a number of reasons. The first one is because it's going to be separated into several lessons, several parts. This is just part 1 of Experience number 6, and it's called The 4 Selves. And the other reason why this is different is because it's a journaling exercise. And so you can put this in your Creative Soul Searching journals, and you can cut and paste journal with it and everything like that. Or you can just cut out the prompts and write them, or you can just write them directly on these sheets, and you can make this as creative as you want. This lesson is going to be a foundational lesson for the work that we're going to do together moving forward. And so I really want you to at least watch the videos, and I hope that you go through all of the journaling exercises as well. This is going to affect your life a lot. It's going to affect your relationships. It's going to affect your self-respect. It's going to affect your priorities, everything. This is a life-changing lesson. And so let's just get started. Like I said, this is mostly a journaling lesson. And so if you don't have a lot of time, you can also just watch the video and think about it. Or like I said, you can make it as creative as you want. I can't wait to see what you guys do with it. But please at least watch the videos. I love you so much. I love who you are. And you're super easy to love too. So let's get started. Mwah. Hello, my friends. Okay, well, this Creative Soul Searching lesson is going to be broken up into a series because this is one of the most important lessons that I know of, that I have to constantly remember, and that I would like to share with you. You're going to recognize it because it's just truth. And I've taught it, in different ways in soul restoration and other things. But this lesson has also evolved a lot as I've evolved and as the world has evolved. And you're going to see as you have evolved, and all of us just understanding more about life, and through doing soul work, and through living, through having all the experiences that we have, and through what our brain and our heart does, and all the chemicals that run through our body. Like, there's so many things to contend with as we are a soul having a human experience. We're a soul inside of a body. And so we are contending all the time with what our soul already knows and what our soul is made of and why our soul is here, mixed with what our body does, what it needs, what it gets addicted to, what it yearns for, all of our limitations. So that's really what I'm going to talk about. This lesson is called The 4 Selves. And you guys who have been with me for a long time, a decade or so, know that I often teach a lesson about the cardboard cutout. And that's really what this lesson is based on, but it's evolved into a multi-dimensional sort of a parable, an analogy that, man, if we could just remember this, it could help everything and fix everything, just even in our own personal lives. And so I'm just going to go over what the concept of the lesson is. And then this time we're just going to do the first section of it, and then we're going to go through and do all 4. But the 4 selves there's 2 false selves and there's 2 real selves. And the false selves are rooted in fear and what I would call lies. I heard a really great definition when I was listening to a podcast a little bit ago about good and evil, or which, those are concepts that are kind of hard to grasp, and you don't really know where you stand on like what is good and what is evil. But the best definition I heard of evil is just anything that doesn't have love, that's a lack of love, that there's a complete void of love. And so that made like the concept of evil a lot easier for me to swallow. So there's other things like darkness and light and things like that. Now, this isn't even a philosophical or religious discussion, but I'm just saying, like, when we can't grasp, like, because I'm somebody who tries to see the good in everything to my own detriment, because I'm also an avoider and I'm non-confrontational, and so it's not like a good noble thing that I only see the good in things. I think a lot of it has to do with my own fears and my own weaknesses, and I don't want to face things that have a lack of love, But the reason I'm saying all this is because the false selves and the true selves, one is rooted in truth and one is rooted in truth. One is rooted in not truth, and it's mostly rooted in fears. And so I'll start telling you about it. Okay, so the first self, this is what I like to call our cardboard cutout self, okay? So this is the self that we actually get trained to do this from a young age, from media and things like that, to create this perfect version of ourselves that we want to be seen as. So imagine this version of yourself is just a perfect cardboard cutout of your perfect self, okay? The self that you want to be perceived as, mostly because you're afraid of if you got perceived a different way. It goes back to these base carnal fears from the beginning of time about survival, that if I'm not acceptable in the tribe or in the group, then I'm going to get kicked out and I won't be able to make it. Like, humans really cannot make it without each other. I know we try to, and it causes all sorts of problems, but we have a huge fear of not belonging that's rooted just basically in survival. Of course, it doesn't feel good in our hearts to feel like we don't belong, but it's really rooted in if I don't belong, I'm going to get kicked out of the tribe, and then there's no way I'll ever survive. So what we do is we create this maybe it's like super blinged out, like cardboard cutout of the self that we want to be perceived as. Or it could even be if you've had a lot of trauma and you have a hard time trusting, you might create this veneer, this facade of like spikes and pokey things, and to tell people to just, stay the heck away from me, right? So it's this veneer of how we want to be perceived, and I'll tell you why. This is when I added in. So if you have had this lesson from me before, it went from your cardboard cutout self to your soul, but there's two in there. I've realized, like, we're so layered, and this lesson helps you understand why you might do some of the things that you do, and and in addition, why other people do what they do, okay? And that helps us to be more patient and kind and merciful with ourselves and with others. Okay, so the next self is the wounded self. Now remember, these are false selves. So we create this cardboard cutout of ourselves that's all blinged out or pokey, spiked out, because we're afraid of this other lie that we think we're this. We're broken and we're dirty and we're not good enough, and we're afraid that if this got stripped away, people would see that we're actually this, okay? That we're not, we don't feel like that's a good enough thing, or maybe it's dirty and used and too traumatized or messed up, whatever that is. We create this because we're afraid that if people saw how we really are, that we wouldn't be acceptable, okay? So neither one of these are true. Like, this is such a heavy, horrible thing, and we go around just terrified, like, what's going to happen if they find out that I'm actually this? Well, the good news is, I don't know why we do this, why we think that we're this. We get a lot of conditioning, obviously, from a very young age. And then there's sometimes abuse and, all sorts of really messed up things that make this even worse. But if we could strip both of those away, which is what I want you to do, we see that we are actually just a human self and a soul. Now, this one I put little rhinestones or cubic zirconias, or maybe it's even diamonds. I don't know. Like you gild yourself, or you cover yourself with spikes and pokies, whatever it is that you're trying to protect with this cardboard cutout. This one's just like beat up and bloody and oozing and all this kind of stuff. Now, this first one that's rooted in truth, our true selves, is your human self. Now, the reason I made this roses like a plant is because we go through so many incarnations of ourselves. We go through seasons. Like, we have a bunch of winters and we have a bunch of falls and a bunch of springs and a bunch of summers in our lives, figuratively is what I mean, where we go through something and then we go through the whole cycle of it and then it dies and we have to grieve it and then something else is born, just like a rose bush. You know, that thing I used to have the most beautiful rose garden, and roses are so peculiar because they bloom and bloom and bloom, and then you have to cut them all the way down to like this much. They're big, stocky, almost make trees. You cut them down and it seems like they're just going to die, and then they blossom up and they bloom again. And that's kind of how we are in our human selves, okay? This human experience that we get to have is just goes through ups and downs and all sorts of seasons, and it's all good. And we're going to be able to continue on blossoming and being a tight little bud, and then blossoming into a perfect flower, and then, you know, coming all the way out and then dropping our leaves and then having to be pruned away and then starting all over. We do that a million times in our life. And sometimes it's overlapping. Sometimes something's dying when something's being born. And that's the human experience we get to have. Now, finally, all the way inside, just like we're doing all this soul work together, creative soul searching, we're actually souls. And I love that science is starting to talk about, you know, the nature of our souls, what we're actually made of. We're actually made of light and energy. And they're starting to be able to prove that. That used to be such a woo-woo concept, you know, and now it's being proven by science, and I love that. What's wonderful about it, and that's why she's just made of little sparkling pieces of light, is that it's irrefutable, it's indestructible, and we are already valuable, infinitely valuable, no matter what. Now, what I believe, and I know that your heart is going to tell you, and that's what I want you to do, is really tune in with your heart. You have this amazing technology inside of you to know what's true and what isn't. But your soul is, it's here to learn and to grow and to become more than it ever was. And that's really what I believe this human journey is about, which means we're going to make mistakes. We're going to fall on our face. We're going to try stuff. We're going to do other stuff. We're going to learn how to love. We're going to learn how to be loved, which is sometimes sometimes it's harder to let ourselves be loved than it is to actually love. And there's just so much here for us to learn. And I think that, you know, we make mistakes and we misfire and we don't hit the target or whatever. But I think every experience that we have has some value in it, even the really, really hard ones, to teach us something. Even if the only thing we learn from it is what we're capable of, how strong we are. And so as you're going through your human self, your human experiences, and thinking about some things that you wish would have gone differently, whether it was a choice that you made or maybe a choice somebody else made, or things that happened that are totally out of our control. Some of those things were a complete lack of love, right? They were like evil. And some of those things were just mistakes. But all of it we can heal from, and we can learn from, and then we can help each other with. And so that's what we get to do in this human experience. But no matter what happened to you, no matter what mistakes you've made, no matter what did or didn't come true for you, no matter where you're at in life, you're always going to be this, and you're always going to be valuable. No one can ever take that away from you. Ever, 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 ever. And all the things that you go through here, you get to use those to gain more wisdom, to become more than you've ever been. Even the things that you wish would have gone differently. Sometimes those things teach us the most, okay? So that's what the concept of this is. Now we're going to do this actual one last, because I want you to go through all of them, and then this is kind of an evaluation of what each of these 4 selves feels like. So we're going to start with our cardboard cutout self, okay? So this is the one that I want you to start with, and I gave you the PDF that has all of them in it, but I'm not going to give you the lesson for each one until that week comes, because I really want you to spend a whole week thinking about this. Okay, so my false cardboard cutout. Now, like I said, this one's covered with rhinestones and cubic zirconias and whatever. It's a heavy dang cardboard cutout to carry around, but yours could be covered with spikes, like I said. Now, I've been living in the desert for, gosh, it'll be 2 years coming up here in the fall. So I guess a year and a half. And I never thought I would love the desert, ever. I love lush green forests and things like that, but I have fallen in love with the desert. And I think it's because I was in such a state in my life where I really had to preserve my resources. And I'm walking and hiking among cactuses all the time, which is not, there's a few cactuses in Idaho, but where I live, they're everywhere. And in fact, almost every plant that's native out here has some kind of a spike coming out. And so I was like, what is that all about? And it's really about preserving the water that these plants have, because it's so scarce and so precious. And I think sometimes we have to grow spikes. I mean, I've kind of been a hermit for 2 years as I've been healing from some stuff. And I feel a little bit like a cactus. Like, I feel like I'm emerging out of that. But for a while, I felt like a cactus. Like, just back off. I have nothing extra to give, to anybody. And it was a scary, horrible time. But walking through the desert and seeing all of these things thriving because they're protecting their resources really taught me a lesson. And I don't know that, it's my true nature to be a cactus, but for the time when I needed to heal from some things, I needed to grow some spikes. And so that's what I needed to do. Sometimes, though, we make a cardboard cutout that's covered in spikes when we really don't need it. And instead of it being attached to who we actually are, we're attaching it on the outside. And so I just want you to think through, do you bling it up or do you spike it up? Like, which one do you do? Okay, so ways that you might bring this issue into your life. I just want you to think, this is such a personal lesson, and that's one of the reasons I'm doing it mostly in just writing. I mean, I'm going to paste some of this stuff into my journals, but I'm going to put this in a journal where I can actually write, and I'm going to write through all of this. Now, I'm going to tell you ways I've brought this into my life in the past. This is protection. That's what this is. I want you to think of the ways that you protect yourself in destructive ways that are heavy, ways that feel false, ways that feel like self-betrayal, ways that feel terrifying, because if people actually found out, like, those are the ones I want you to think about. So maybe that's how you dress, or what you spend your money on. Like, you're terrified that if I showed up as I actually am, I would not be accepted. So, or if anybody was able to see past this, that's might be what you do with your spikes. It would be a terrible thing and I wouldn't survive. That's your base fear. So ways I bring this into my life, for me, it's part of my cardboard cutout for a really long time was saying yes to anything anyone ever asked of me. I'm trying to heal from some stuff right now that I realized goes so far back. I was just talking to one of my friends just a little bit ago about something I learned about myself this year, is that I have a savior complex and I have a victim complex. And those things have gotten me in so much trouble and probably hurt other people and hurt my own progression and not been a good example to my kids. And what I mean by that is I have felt like in the past that I'm not capable of fixing my own self. And so I was always waiting for somebody to come and save me and rescue me. That's just my base core thing. Now there's parts of me where, like, I'm doing fine and I do great for a while, but then my fear in the back of my head is just always like, I can't do this myself. Somebody has to come rescue me. Now, on the flip side, I think if I'm going to have value and be valuable, then I need to make sure that I go seek out every single person in the universe that needs to be rescued, and I need to rescue them. And that has gotten me in trouble because, first of all, most adults don't need to be rescued. And even a lot of kids don't need, children always do. But I think sometimes I have tried to rescue people, and if I look back, I was doing it more for myself than for them. And I've learned to allow people the same sorts of lessons that have helped me the most, where you let people figure things out and not rush in and try to rescue them. And also that I'm already valuable and I don't need to try to pay my way to not get kicked out by going around and making sure that I'm doing extra everywhere, Now, the other one is hoping somebody's going to come rescue me. as many of you know, my great lesson is I lost my husband for 6 years straight, but then I lose him a couple of months out of each year because of his brain injury. He just has relapses. And so we've been married almost 31 years, and he is an absolute hero, rescuer archetype. And so you put somebody like me who has like kind of a damsel in distress, and my old wounds make me feel like I'm not capable. And so you put us together, and it's like this yucky dynamic, this dance that we do when we're both, not feeling our strongest selves, where I want him to rescue me, and I don't even know. He probably doesn't even participate in this in the way I think, because he doesn't ever think of me as a weak person. He's always trying to tell me, like, you could do this yourself. But he likes to come in and be the hero. But I had to learn how to be my own hero. And I don't know if it comes from being 50 or it comes from, good heavens. I have chosen a lot of people that have hero complex or savior complex that were toxic, like I was dancing with toxic people, wanting them to save me because they have, savior complex, and I have victim complex, whatever. So the reason I'm bringing all this up is because sometimes I put on a cardboard cutout of a rescuer, and sometimes I put one on of a victim when I'm in my weakest self. This is hard stuff to admit, you guys. I've been just battling with this and accepting myself and forgiving myself for doing this, and also like fiercely saying, I am done doing this. I am done being thinking I have to be everybody's savior, and I'm done thinking that I need to be saved, which means I am opening up this huge possibility of like, what if we're all here to just experience? What if we're all here to experience and we can help each other along the way, but we're just here to experience? Like, you're not a huge failure if you mess up at something, or you're not a huge failure if you don't rescue everybody. You're not a huge failure if nobody comes and rescues you. Like, we just get to experience things, okay? So that's one of my cardboard cutouts that I have had to learn how to drop. I think another one that I've put on is I pretend like everything's okay when it isn't. Especially like with my husband's brain injury. That's something I'm really starting to be really honest about, is just how hard that is sometimes, him and I both. And that I think we've gotten to the point where we're like, this isn't going to go away. We've tried everything, and we're going to be battling this probably till we die. And, there's years that are better than others. But I, in my great pursuit to drop my cardboard cutouts, one of the ones I'm dropping is the one where I put on a smiley, happy face when I'm shattered inside, or when I'm terrified or whatever. And I'm honest with myself, and I'm honest with others about what that's really like. Okay, so that's another one that I put on, and I'm just going to keep writing through this, just like I want you guys to do. Ways I bring this into my life, that's what I was just talking about. The next one, I spend a lot of time blinging and polishing parts of my life. Like I said, like before I was, when you're going through a chronic issue, it gets old. Like when people ask you how you're doing, like you want to have a different answer. And so, I spent a lot of time blinging and polishing parts of my life. Like, I think I've spent a lot of time, trying to make things better when they weren't getting better, or trying to make things look better, because I don't want to exhaust everybody with how hard our life is sometimes, I nervously spend a lot of time trying to look like I have it all together, like I'm fine, like I'm totally capable, like I'm not completely exhausted, like whatever. Or sometimes when, in the past, maybe when there has been like a savior type person like my husband, maybe I would spend a lot of time trying to look like a damsel in distress so that he would come save me, like so that we could do our dance, Okay, I desperately put a lot of time, effort, and resources into trying to be, oh gosh, I've stopped doing so many of these things, but I'm going to go back and look at the last 5 years. I desperately put a lot of time, effort, and resources into trying to be, I think maybe sometimes I swing the pendulum the other way, because now I spend a lot of time and resources trying to be fiercely independent and not ever need help from anybody, and not ask for anything, and not sound like a victim, and also not try to save people, and just like kind of go in the other direction. And so, gosh, this human thing is hard. But in the past, I desperately put a lot of time, effort, and resources into trying to be worthy, or to look worthy. When I look at this false economy that I created, that if you're this and this and this, then you'll be okay. But if you're this and this and this, you won't. If you're this and this and this, they'll let you stay. And if you're this and this and this, they're going to kick you out. You know, just all these things from all the way back in my childhood. Like I just put together all of these economies. And so you guys, it's hard for me to talk about this. So I know this lesson is going to be hard for you to even do. But I am begging you to do this. You will not be free until you know the stories that you're telling yourself and the reasons, the fear that's underneath this cardboard cutout and why you carry it around. You're never going to be free of it until you face it and you're honest with yourself, just like I'm trying to be right now. Okay, I fearfully create the illusion that. Okay, so for me, and I want you to think about the illusions that happen that create fear in your body. So I'm still battling. If I don't get this right, everything's just gonna go away. You know, if you've had trauma, as you know, you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know, there's always something in the back of your mind that's like, okay, things are really good right now, but I'm not going to get too attached to this because this could get taken. This probably will get taken from me tomorrow because everything always gets taken, you know? And so I fearfully create the illusion that I can't, and I, like I said, these are just little slices of trauma that are still left in me. A lot of it is healed, but I'm just giving you examples and I'm just being very vulnerable and telling you what I deal with. I fearfully create the illusion that I'm never going to, and this is, like I said, just a little slice that I'm trying to heal, that I'm never going to ever be safe. And I'm never going to be able to just relax and know that everything's going to be fine. I'm always going to have to be on guard because there's always some villain lurking around the corner that's going to come and do something. And so I fearfully create the illusion because that's really what the illusion is. I'm learning. I used to think the illusion was that I'm fine and nothing bad is ever going to happen to me. I would think like I lie to myself and tell myself that. But now I'm realizing that the illusion that I've created is that I'm never going to be fine and I'm never going to be safe because all of this cardboard cutout is rooted in that second layer that we're going to talk about next week. That's the lie that you think you're garbage or that you're ruined or that there's something that happened in your life that you can never heal or that took your value, even a smidgen of your value. Nothing can take even a smidgen of your value away. Whether it was a choice that you made or a choice that somebody else made or something that was totally out of your control, nothing can take your value away, you guys. Nothing, 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 nothing. And when we think that that's a possibility, we not only suffer, but we make the entire world miss out on who we are because we play small, because we think we're small. And that's why I want you guys to just give it your all in this lesson. Because this broken world needs people in their wholeness, in their fullness, in their magnificence. And that's what I know, that's what you guys exist, what you're made of. I know that. And I know inside that you know that too. But we got to peel away all these layers to get down to who we actually are. Okay? I think way too often about how for survival I need to be more. You know, like I said, I've healed so many of these things, but man, in the past, it was just like, if I'm going to survive, I have to have this balance of being happy and joyful and saying yes all the time and doing good things all the time, but not being too good and not being too successful and not being too happy. What an exhausting freaking bunch of beliefs that there's nothing that I can ever really do to be safe. So I think way too often about how for survival I need to be, like I said, it's messed up now that I'm thinking about it. Like to be able to be a damsel in distress, I need to be weaker, but to be able to be safe, I need to be stronger, and to be able to be loved and not get kicked out, I need to be nicer, and I need to say yes more. This is messed up, you guys. And I know that if I have gone through this and am going through this, then a lot of you have. And it might be something totally different. Like I said, I was born, I'm an empath and I'm very sensitive. And so I have battled, like I said, with boundaries. You know, when you think you have to be nice and say yes to everybody, it's really hard when you realize, like, this is going to kill me if I keep saying yes to everything. And then you feel like you're mean and a jerk if you don't. And so, but then if you don't have boundaries, then you have no self-respect. You don't even have a self, because you're letting everybody else define who you are. So if you start working through this, or you're already thinking through this now, like, oh my gosh, there's so much here to unpack. Just know that you're going to get through this, and it's worth the work. It's like carrying around a backpack full of rocks, and then, you know, being completely covered with heavy pieces of whatever, like that you blinked. Like, it's so heavy, you guys. It's so heavy, and that's not even the most tragic part of it. The most tragic part of it is that you've got this layer, and then you've got this layer that you have these two false layers that you're carrying around because you think, you know, something's wrong with you, so you have to hide it. That's heavy, but what it does is it keeps us from getting close to each other. It keeps us from connecting with each other. When all of us are bumping up against two layers of cardboard cutouts, and all the fear and projection that goes along with that, we cannot connect. We have to be willing, as Wes Taylor says, vulnerability is the new badass. Vulnerability is a superpower. We have to be willing to peel away the cardboard cutout of the perfect self, the safe self, and then the lie after that we think we're not good enough, and that's why we have to peel both of those away, which is very scary, so that we can connect with each other, so that we can be soul to soul, human to human, and actually be together, and not be bumping up against each other's cardboard cutouts. I think that would create world peace. It would change the world. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is just work through this first one, okay? And it's going to be uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for me to talk about this right now. I'm going to go work on this, and I will come back and return and report the experience that I have with this. This is important work, you guys. It's like cleaning out the infection, which we'll do a lesson about that soon. But it's like you can't be whole and healed when there's like a cancer and an infection in you. And if we do the work to dig all this out, we get to be who we actually are. And life starts feeling better and lighter, and boundaries just come naturally. You know, everything just kind of starts to come naturally. Of course, life is never going to be easy, but man, it gets a whole lot easier when you're not carrying around 1,000 pounds of cardboard cutout, and you don't have the ability to connect with others, and you also don't feel a lot of self-respect when you go to sleep every night knowing that you didn't show up in the world as you. Sometimes it's so uncomfortable and unnatural for us to do that we just spend most of our life trying to numb our feelings so that we don't have to feel what that feels like. So we numb our feelings with addictions like food and exercise, substances, you know, alcohol and other substances, work, shopping. We just numb. Netflix, whatever it is. When we stop carrying this stuff around, we want to be alive, and we stop numbing, and we actually get to have the amazing experiences that were intended for us. Okay, so download the PDF and just start journaling, and then we can talk about this later. I love you guys so much. I want to see your true selves. I know that everybody who loves you wants to see your true selves. You don't have to carry around these cardboard cutouts anymore. I know it's hard, and it's going to happen in stages, just like it has for me. But man, I want to know you. Everybody wants to know you. You want to know you. You want to live your life as you. Okay, so we're going to do my false cardboard cutout. And then next week, we'll move on to, this one's called My False Broken Self. And then we're going to go into the good stuff, okay? I love you guys so much, and enjoy this lesson. Please do it. Don't skip this. I know it's hard. It's worth it, though. This is your key to freedom. I love you. Mwah.